But some of that, what it has done, it has asked us to be both men and women in a way. It's
Yeah.
asked us to have that almost testosterone like of like not having feelings, numbing or hardening so that we can actually leave the house or make hard decisions or do hard things. The flip side is asked us to abandon our heart and to not feel. And society asks that in many different contexts.
It's not just hard on us women, it's hard on the men too. Like our roles have changed through empowerment of, we don't have to follow the traditional masculine or feminine role. And there's a lot of like beauty in that, of course. And there's a lot of like, it's very confusing. Hey, ladies, today I am sitting down with Alexandra Roxo. She is the author of this month's Book Nook pick, Dare to Feel. Alexandra is a transformational mentor and expert in deep emotional healing. She's known for her bold, raw, and powerful approach to personal growth. Alexandra helps women break free from suppression, embrace their full emotional spectrum, and reclaim their most authentic selves. Don't we love that, Kai Kai?
Yes.
Get ready for this conversation that's going to challenge, inspire, and ignite something real within you.
Ready.
Hey, real quick, have you ever felt like there's no time to rest, put your feet up, or even think about picking up a book? That's exactly why I created Best Friends Book Nook. This is not your typical book club. It's designed for busy women just like us who are wanting to connect with ourselves, grow, but without the pressure. In this free community, we choose inspiring, easy-to-read books and create space for ourselves, even if it's just 5 minutes a day to breathe, reset, and finally enjoy a little me time. The best part, we have regular community connection calls where we share insights, connect, and support each other. If this sounds like what you've been craving, check the links to Book Nook in the description. We'd love to see you there. Now, back to the show. I just want to dive right in. I think there's so many of us women that are really trying to choose between being soft and being strong, whether that's like through our training or our programming or our conditioning. And I love, in the book, you talk about our power coming from being deeply connected to our emotions. So what do you mean by that?
Great question. It's so unfortunate that we think we have to choose or that society has set it up where it's like, choose a box. You're either strong and capable and competent, or you're either like mushy and messy and weak, right? And there's this association with vulnerability being weak because biologically and physiologically it has been, right? Like, women, if you're a pregnant bellied woman, are you gonna walk out into the middle of a battlefield? Are you gonna walk out into like a forest alone at night? Like that's a very, very vulnerable. Our physical bodies, pregnant or not, are different biologically speaking than a male body. Actually, I was just reading this incredible book. I got the last name of the Dr. Erica. I think it's Commissar. I'm going to find it for you guys because it's about the first 3 years of motherhood. But she talks about our ability as females to produce oxytocin in a way that men cannot. Because if they were producing as much oxytocin, they just want to be cuddling and bonding with their babies all day. And again, biologically speaking, that wouldn't make sense if they needed to go out and get us food.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
But it's 2025 and things are a bit more nuanced than that. The men aren't just going out and hunting food and bringing it home with their testosterone, which they're able to make a kill without stopping and having to cry about the kill and feel the empathy and the compassion, right? Think about that. If women were expected to go out hunting thousands of years ago, millions of years ago, it would be a different understanding of that experience of life and death. We are the keepers of life. We're the nurturers. Our biology is programmed in a way that is meant to nurture and sustain life. So, the reason I'm telling you that is because us being programmed to be vulnerable and that has been interpreted as weakness, that's actually nature's incredible wisdom. We're not programmed to ignore our baby's cry. We're programmed to feel our baby's cry and to stop what we're doing and to tend to the baby. And so that vulnerability, that ability to have empathy, to feel deeply, comes from nature. It comes from a deeply biological place. Now, we have fucked with that quite a bit, pardon my French. We have said, oh, no, actually, moms, go out and work. Just ignore your baby's cry. It's fine. You don't, it's going to figure itself out. And some of that, I mean, it goes down to every person's choice, every family's choice. But some of that, what it has done, it has asked us to be both men and women in a way. It's
Yeah.
asked us to have that almost testosterone like of like not having feelings, numbing or hardening so that we can actually leave the house or make hard decisions or do hard things. The flip side is asked us to abandon our heart and to not feel. And society asks that in many different contexts. Motherhood is just on my mind because I'm a mom. Okay. I'm a 1-year-old. And my partner today is like, oh, she's crying at the babysitter. So I'm going to take care of her so you can go have a client session and do your podcast. But that applies across the board to any moment that we are asking ourselves to be hard and tough it out instead of to feel what's true. Society has been created, capitalism, for a place where we have to abandon our needs and have to abandon our feelings and our hearts in order to function. Some people have jobs where it's like they don't want to think about the amount of harm that's happening from whatever company they work for, right? Like that's just too much to hold. So there's so much to the conversation of like, why would we stay vulnerable in a crazy world like this? Why would we stay vulnerable in a world that has historically been like a colonizer world, a capitalist world, a quote unquote man's world? Why would we dare to be soft and open in a world that feels so scary? And so it's a very brave thing to do, to be the one at a dinner party that stays tender in your heart and soft in your heart and lets a tear trickle down your cheek and says, oh, I'm heartbroken about what's happening in the world and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Instead of just staying in your opinions and in your rational mind, which is the conditioned place of stay strong, stay rational, stay intellectual, the masculine, right? If we're talking about it archetypally speaking. So to be soft and vulnerable is no small thing in today's world. It is very, very huge. And you can be soft energetically and emotionally, and you can also be tough. You can also be strong. They are not mutually exclusive. Look at the female body. It's both. It's soft, it's mushy gushy, and it is so strong.
So many things there. I mean, so many places I want to go, and I'm going to go with my heart and my gut because I'm literally like feeling this sensation in my body with this information. And I know you feel this too. Like, it's not just hard on us women, it's hard on the men too. Like, our roles have changed through empowerment of, we don't have to follow the traditional masculine or feminine role. And there's a lot of like beauty in that, of course. And there's a lot of like, it's very confusing now. And so when I'm listening to that, and I'm curious for the beehivers that are in here, you can use the chat. I feel the conflict in my body. And because I'm daring to feel, I'm aware of it, right? So it's like, yes, I hear this. And the reality is I have a job where I'm putting myself out there. And, for most of us with careers and jobs, mine is different, mine is unique, but like we've got to lock it down, right? So when I was a chiropractor treating patients, or at least that's what we tell ourselves. Like we've got to be, mechanical and like go in there and get it and to be successful and to not bring our stuff into the workplace, which ironically, I now truly believe the opposite. But like, how do we do both, right? How do we as women lean into our softness? Because I do believe and understand what you're saying, like that is where a true power lies. But how do we actually start to encompass that in the real world with what we're juggling? I don't know if there's an answer. I don't really know if there's an answer. It's probably a rabbit hole that we need to go down, but I'm curious your take on that.
If you have to work in an environment that inherently has to demand of you to close your feeling heart, your emotional heart, your spiritual heart in order to function there safely, then you have to do that. That is not everybody has the choice, right? To choose a career, a vocation, a lifestyle that allows you to stay in some vulnerability, feeling softness. But
What?
you can make the choice for yourself. And if you can notice, oh, wow, I have this friendship that I cannot be soft, open, vulnerable, expressive, emotional within. I have this work relationship that I cannot be that within. I have this family member that I cannot do that. Then those are all places where you are withholding part of your truth as a human and you're cutting yourself off from yourself. Now, the first piece is just being aware that it's happening, which takes some people a long time. Some people never get there. Some people don't realize, let's say, I'm just like imagining someone who works in a chicken slaughterhouse and they have to cut off their ability to feel. I mean, that's very extreme. Okay, guys, sorry about that, but like I'm thinking the most extreme, right? I'd be like crying. I'd be like, oh my God, I
Yeah,
can't
right.
handle this.
Yeah.
But maybe one day the woman who works there is just like, oh my God, like this actually is really intense for me. Even that one thought, this is really intense for me, is awareness, a dawning of awareness. Does that mean she quits that job? No, it just means she starts to become aware. This is intense for me. In order to be here, have to cut off my feeling self. I have to not feel. So look at that as a, hyperbole, as an example that is very dramatic in
Yeah.
how we have places in our lives where we do that. Certain friendships where we do that. Certain people in our lives that we do that with. So eventually we can make a choice and go, wow, in order to be in this relationship, I have to cut off from myself. And I actually don't want to do that.
Yeah, and that I love that you talked about awareness because that's where the power starts, right? It's just noticing because that's the pause before you're just following an old script or an old track or burying it.
Yeah.
And I also think a lot about the woman who maybe wakes up and is having like an off day and maybe is having one of those days. Maybe your period's coming, or maybe it's just a day and you're just feeling like weepy and all the things that come with our beautiful hormones that make us who we are. And then you've got to go into this job where you're like in front of your computer and it's very static and linear. But like, there's got to be a place where we start to change the scripts. And the women that are in here in this room are thought leaders. These women may not realize it, but they are cycle breakers. And I think this is where we have the opportunity to be vulnerable. And I want to ask you some questions on how we can help, how we can almost like walk women through these kind of situations, whether it's their friends or their families, an anchor, right? So while you're new to it, but like, in that situation, creating a deep connection through your vulnerability, because that's where we truly connect, right? It's
Yeah.
through our humanness. And so maybe sharing something when you're at the coffee pot, like, instead of the superficial, hey, how are you doing? How's the weather? How about the game, the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. Like, how about really opening and being honest and dropping that one little seed of like, here's who I really am.
Yeah. I mean, that is powerful and it's risky because if you're in an environment where that is not a part of the culture, if you start doing that, you could really shake things up and you could invite somebody. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I have a feeling it has, where you bring some openness and then somebody is like, thank God she's open, and they just start spilling their guts all over you. Have you had that happen to you?
You're like, no, Debbie Downer. Yeah. You're like, no, just a
Well,
little bit.
because you're the open person in the room, and some people can sense that, so
Mhm.
that you're magnetic. But what that means is then people may want you to be their therapist, their healer, their coach, all of that kind of thing. So boundaries are important in those moments, right? So it's like there is a place to open and also to have a discernment, right? So if it's like at work, if I show that I am the deep woman that I am, what is that gonna change? What is that gonna do? Like, what, quote unquote danger could that put me in if it's clear to people that I am somehow have access to myself in this deeper way? There are some work environments where you might not want to do that at face value. Now, does that mean you can't be deep and open with boundaries and with discernment? Like, yeah, you can be open with boundaries and discernment. I would say practice it, yes, and practice doing it in a way that feels safe to you. So you aren't going from, okay, I'm part of this like very closed down culture And now I'm coming in wide open, bright, light, vulnerability, and I'm like a fucking attracting all the moths, right, to the flame. I don't want that for anybody because I've done that in the past, and it's dangerous feeling. So you wanna be able to modulate your energy and to feel this is a context that I can express my vulnerability within safely, that it's safe for me. And that could be, even just like with the mailman or something like that, just being like, "How you doing, man?
Mhm.
How's your day?" And he's like, "Oh, it's great," or "It's annoying," and like just something that doesn't mean you're spilling your guts and going into some deep process with a stranger, but you're also acknowledging that we're both humans here. I'm a human, you're human. And sometimes that happens with a breath, a gaze, a word, a laugh. And in today's world, I'm going to say it is still scary to do that. There's a lot of asleepness, a lot of unconsciousness. So being the conscious, sheep, the awakening sheep, the black sheep, right? Wherever you are can feel really exposed and it can feel very vulnerable. And so bring it and make sure you have your people behind you. You have the practices that that keep you feeling strong and safe so that you don't have to do either. You don't have to pendulum swing from I'm wide open to all of life or I'm closed. That how to play those notes on the scale and to go, "Ooh, this person is not the person that I'm going to open my heart to at the water cooler. This person is." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All know those ones where it's like, not you.
Yes. I love the term practice. I think practice is it's one of my favorite words because I think we get to practice in
Yeah.
all these situations, and practice, the word gives you the opportunity for it to not go right. So it's doing it and having it be that wrong person that you're like, "Oh, hell no." But instead of just choosing to shut down and not do it again, you're practicing. That one didn't
Yeah.
work. Let me try it over here. Let me practice again.
Yeah, it's for you at the end of the day. It's because you believe in love, you believe in truth, you believe in openness. You want to live open, you want to live alive, you want to live true. So, as long as you're also not like, "Oh, I'm going to go open that person's heart," right? Like, I'm going to go say the right thing to crack them open, right? No, it's like, I'm here, I'm alive. Like, "Hey, Joe, you look great in that red shirt. How are you?" Because I want to, because it feels good for me. And,
Love that.
you know, yeah. And
Um,
sometimes it lands and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, it's practice. We've got some fun stuff coming in the chat. Ladies in the chat room, if you want to bring up any situation, any circumstance, this is your opportunity as beehives. You can do that. We will have the 10 minutes Q&A at the end as well, but go ahead and chime in. I mean, you've got the expert here. Alexandra, another question I want to ask you is, I think as women, we have just grown up avoiding feeling, right? We talked about this at the beginning. So what are maybe some sneaky ways that we're doing that in our lives that we don't even realize we're disconnecting from ourselves? You could come here, okay.
Mhm. So that's a great question. One of the ways we do it is by staying busy. Oh, we are so busy. Are you busy? I'm so busy. Scheduled, got so much going on. If I had a feeling, when am I going to have time to feel it? I need to cry? Who has time for cry? When?
Mhm.
In between breakfast, cooking breakfast, showing up to my work, showing up to my client. So that's interesting, right? Modern women staying so busy that we don't really have space to process. Oh, I can process in my 1 hour a week in therapy. Really? You're going to process your whole life there? You're going to cry, you're going to scream. So you have to create space in your life to feel. And it doesn't have to be a whole big production. It can literally be kids are asleep, you cozy up in your partner's lap and you go, "Oh, I'm so sad. I don't even
Mhm.
know why I'm sad, babe. I'm just sad." So the thing is to practice being in the vulnerability of a feeling and just having it and not trying to fix it or change it. And noticing where it's coming from. Is it coming from a wound? Is it coming from reactivity? Is it coming from because I actually am trying to get something from someone? So those are all pieces, right? To notice. But if you look at the landscape of your life and days, and you're not screaming and you're not crying and you're not stomping and you're not laughing, then you're not experiencing the spectrum of human emotion. You're not experiencing your humanness. I'm not saying you have to do those things every day. I mean, it's probably very healthy, but to an extent, right? We're not doing it because we're trying to get something. We're not doing it because we're needing to cry because our wounds are needing to be seen. We are having a response to life. And then we invite in others into that response. So it becomes an invitation. Oh, I'm so mad about this stupid politics. Fuck. Maybe first tell your friend, hey, friend, I'm on the phone with you, friend. Hey, can I share with you how I really feel right now? Do you have space? Do you have space? Yeah, babe, I'm driving to Whole Foods. Okay, tell me how you really feel. I'm fucking mad about politics. Ah! Right? And that's me feeling something, right? Maybe right now it was kind of bad acting, but but how often do we invite in someone we love into those moments? That creates deep intimacy. The same conversation could be had. Hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. So and so, my kids at school, and this thing's happening at school, blah, blah, blah. All this surface, and then you're like, hey, babe, can I tell you something? Do you have space to hear what's really happening? Yeah, of course, my love. Oh, I'm having such a hard time with my loss. I'm just feeling so sad. Now, the thing is, we're not teenagers, so we have to know how to contain and regulate at a certain point and to notice and read the room. We're not using our friend as our therapist. We're not boohooing for 45 minutes, right? You have to have a little bit of awareness. Again, that word awareness, so that you're not so self-contained that you're not sharing your emotional experience with anyone and you feel like a robot Stepford wife or whatever. And you're does that dated that movie? It was a Nicole Kidman. She was like the perfect
I
wife.
think I think everyone here probably knows stuff
Okay,
for
cool.
wives. Yeah.
I know. I mean,
I
I
think you're
learned
safe here.
so you're not doing that like Miss Perfect all the time. I don't have
Yeah.
any feelings. Life is great. But you're not doing the opposite where you're just like, oh, everybody take care of me. I'm a mess. Right. So we have to have some awareness. When we're in intimacy with other people and we never feel their emotions, we feel lonely. We don't know why. Hanging out with them
Wait, say that again? Say that
when
again?
we are in intimacy, friendship, any kind of relational intimacy with a person and we never feel their emotions from them, it will feel lonely to be in contact with them. You will
Uh,
feel like something here feels lonely, hollow. I cannot feel this person because they are not feeling their lives, their emotions, their self. Therefore, I can't feel them. I have nothing to connect with. It's
yeah.
just surface bullshit. So I don't wanna be that person with friends. They're like, "God, Alexandra, she's just so put together, and she doesn't have any feelings," that I feel like a mess, and I feel lonely with her because I can't connect with what it's like to be a woman that has no feelings because
Yeah.
I'm a feeling person inside. So, when we hold back, when we withhold what we're really going through, we create a silo around ourselves where no one can connect in.
Mhm.
It's very vulnerable to have the feeling with another person present. I just got off a client session and I'm like encouraging the client to experience some vulnerability with me very slowly, because you can't force it, especially if it comes from years of repression or years of unsafe relationships.
It's so beautiful, and I know you have a masterclass that we're gonna talk about at the end here. It's free, it's coming up, people can join in. It sounds incredible. I encourage everyone in here to dive in. I'm gonna be in there for sure. But you think about, the women that are in the room right now and the women that are listening to this later, how many of our friendships are that way? Right? Because I think we have thought that that's what we're supposed to do. That's the women that we see online, it's the portrayal of the perfect image and nobody wants it. Nobody wants it, and I think
Not
that's where we just
real. It's hollow.
yeah, we create the busyness and the distractions with ourselves, and then we create that in our friendship circles, and this is where, I think you start to get those little signals and signs that you're ready for deeper friendships. When you start
Yeah,
going into your own feelings, you're like, I love how you said that, like, I don't wanna feel lonely with these people around me.
right.
I wanna see myself in them. Intimacy, someone told me this, intimacy is literally into me you see.
Yeah,
So you can't be intimate with another human, whether it's a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a loved one, if you're not willing to be seen.
yeah,
And
exactly.
it's
But
scary.
yeah,
It can be scary at first.
yeah, it is. That's
How
why
do you
I always say use the guardrails. Say to your friend, I feel really messy right now telling you this, or I feel scared to tell you this, or I feel scared to show what I'm actually feeling, or I'm afraid that I'm going to take up too much space and that you're going to feel burdened by me sharing this. Like, use the guardrails, create the safety that you need in order to be able to speak, in order to be able to get real, like that's fine. That's fine. Be cute and awkward about it. Like, hey, babe, I want to tell you this, but like, I'm afraid I'm going to be really messy about it. I mean, who's going to be like, don't tell me? If somebody loves you, especially or if they're getting to know you, most other people are adults and we don't give them the opportunity to say yes or no. We don't give them the opportunity to say, hey, babe, that was too much. I need you to back up. I mean, how often has somebody said that to you, right? Like as an adult, like a friend, like, hey, this is too much emotion. I have said that to a few friends, like, hey, I just want you to know I'm feeling dysregulated by this conversation. Like it's triggering a place inside of me that's hard. And I just need to be honest about that, right? But it's not about that person's too muchness. It's about the content of what they're talking about that somehow pings into a place inside of me. And that's the dance of intimacy. We have to speak to it, right? Like, hey, what you're talking about is actually freaky for me. I'm freaked out. I love you, but I'm freaked out. So it's a ping pong. It's a tennis game of intimacy. Now I speak my need. Now you speak your need. Now I'm vulnerable. Now you're vulnerable.
Now, I imagine that's how you really start to find your tribe and your people. That's where a lot of my deepest friendships have come from. It's saying those things. I didn't know they're guardrails. I love that saying. So in all the women that you work with and that you coach, I'm curious, what are most women afraid of? Like being intimate with a man or a woman in their life?
That's a great question. Sometimes it's looking dumb, being rejected. Being rejected is like, if I look dumb, I'm going to be rejected. If I do the wrong thing, I'm going to be rejected. It's kind of like at the root of a lot of the things. If I say it wrong, I'm going to be rejected. So it's like perfectionism, control. Am I too much? Am I not enough? Underneath all of those fears and so I'll be rejected and not loved. And that goes back to our deepest, deepest root fears. It's like, I'm not going to be loved. I'm not going to be cared for, and I'm going to die. And that goes to our deepest, most primal fear. At the bottom of all the fears is the fear of death. It's, if I bare my soul to you, if I'm honest with you, you won't love me. You'll abandon me. And then everyone will abandon me. Because if you abandon me, then the whole village is going to abandon me. And then I'm going to be left to die alone. I mean, that is our existential fears underneath all of our fears. And it's scary. I don't wanna die alone. I don't wanna die right now. You know what I mean? Like, the last thing I wanna be thinking about when I'm trying to open my heart is, in some deep place of subconscious inside of me, if I'm rejected, I'm gonna die alone. Like, that's terrible. But it's underneath. It's packed in to our wanting to be loved, wanting to be accepted, wanting to belong. So it's like I could say, here's the thing I see, here's the thing I see, here's the thing I see, but it's all the same because underneath it is all that same thing.
So once women understand that, I visualize like the iceberg underneath, right? Like that's what's at the root of all the fear. So we can start to find ourselves, instead of having the intimate conversation, pouring into busyness or business, which is ironically the same word, pretty much.
Yeah. So funny. I mean, not.
Or we can see ourselves pouring into work or emails or dopamine hits. But when we start to realize that that is the deepest fear, and perhaps that's probably not going to happen, does that help women? That I love the conversations with the ego. Like I love the inner conversations about like, okay, what am I afraid of here? Because I think once we start to identify those and we just, like you said, just go down those layers, it's like, well, that's not true. And that's not going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have a conversation with the inner child inside of you or the core wound or just with your rational mind and go, my love, you speaking your heart to a friend is actually not going to make you die alone in this moment. I know that somewhere inside of you, you're afraid if you bear the vulnerability of your heart to this new friend, that you're going to die alone and you're going to get rejected and abandoned and no one's going to love you. But I just want to let you know this is one small step and that's not true. I mean, you can have that rational conversation, but there are parts of us in our unconscious that are not rational. And so it's complicated. How do we cross that gauntlet of opening our hearts, of daring to break our hearts, to fall in love? Like, what kind of crazy, delicious people do we have to be to say, fuck it, I'm going to bare my heart. Fuck it, I'm going to fall in love. fuck it, I'm gonna text this new friend and say, "That was an awkward lunch. Can we talk about it?" Right? What does it take to be that person?
What
I
does it take?
it's like, I mean,
We want to know from you.
I think it takes your desire to live awake and alive
Mm.
and true to you being bigger than your fear. So get in touch with that. If you're like, "Oh, I can't feel that," find that. Where's that desire live inside of you that's like, "I'm going to fucking live my life and I'm going to claim it and I'm going to have fun and I'm going to break my heart and I'm going to live big." How do you find that? I don't know. You find your passions. You find a few good people that can be mirrors to you, reminding you who you truly are. You find your spiritual values and your spiritual community. So you have enough of a foundation of who you are that in the moments that you could revert to fear, 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 you have something that says, "Nope, I'm bigger than that fear.
Mhm.
I'm going to send that text. I'm going to make that call. I'm going to say I love you back."
Hey, we'll get right back to the show. But first, I want to ask you, are you craving deeper connection, but feel like life is just too chaotic to actually make it happen? This is why I created the Beehive. And trust me, this is the community you didn't know you needed. The Beehive is all about helping you grow, connect, and thrive without adding more to your already full plate. In here, we tackle personal growth together with fun challenges, journaling prompts, and heart-centered support from women who get it. This is like having a cheer squad, a soul tribe, and a growth roadmap all in one. And here's the best part. This community is less than what you would spend on a couple of fancy coffees each month. So imagine simply trading a latte or two for life-changing connection, tools, and growth. So if you're ready to feel aligned, inspired, and truly supported, come join us in the Beehive. Check the Beehive link in description. We would love to see you there. Now back to the show.
So I don't know what it is. I mean, I have this like everybody's is different. For me, I'm like, I'm not gonna let the motherfuckers get me down, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna let fear win. I'm not gonna let the dark side win. Love will win, right? So if love wants me to text that person and say, "Can we talk about it?" I mean, I just had I had some of my partner's family here and we had some ruptures, and I was like, "Hey, there's some stuff. Do you want to talk about it? Like, what does it take?" Because I believe in love over fear and hiding. So you find your why, you find your thread for you.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of fuck it energy. And I'm sorry for anyone listening to this who's not into
Sorry,
that
but
word, but there is like a time and a place for that kind of energy. And
excuse
it's
me, you don't like that word.
oh no, I'm aligning with you on that word because in those moments, like for me, when I hit those moments and I'm like fear, that is what I lean on. And then I like play a song that like resonates with that kind of energy, like freaking Beyonce or this girl is on fire, like whatever, like create that fire inside and like fuck it and go for it because what are we here for anyway? What are we,
Yeah,
like what's the point? But
yeah.
you sitting in that situation, let's just back up for a minute. You're talking about your family, your in-laws were in town and there was some conflict because I don't want to just zoom over this. You were
Okay,
in
good
a
one.
moment, one of those moments, we've all had those moments where you're like, "Oh god, this feels horrible." And you called it out. Oh my god, I can feel that in my body.
Yeah. I like to try to call things out in the moment. So there were some times in the moment where it was like, "Hey, what just happened? Like that felt weird." There are a few times that I didn't. I was just like, "What the fuck just happened?" And it was inside of myself and I just kind of stayed polite, okay? So in the stay polite moments, they started to go into, a little box that invisible box I'm carrying around that are like, "Okay, there's another one for the box. There's another comment that went into the box. There's another awkward moment that went into the box," right? So I'm starting to collect these. And I'm like, "Whoa, okay." They're starting to build up. Okay, so now I know we got to talk about this because there's some stuff in the box.
Wait, but in that moment, what do you feel in your body and how do you regulate that before the
Right.
next
Well,
step?
it's a good question. So I make the game time decision. Is it a time to talk about this and bring it into the open? And what would that do to this moment? Would it actually support this moment, soften this moment? Would it be a healing opportunity or would it tank the day? Would it actually bring us into a place that this moment can't really hold? We're either in the car, we're on a fucking kayak, whatever. So maybe this is not the moment to sit and unpack a comment or an energy that feels like it's not good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I make those decisions. There are a few times, let's say on this trip, where I was like, oh, I need to say right now, I need to speak up. Hey, I actually don't use that language in front of my daughter. Ha ha ha. I'm laughing right now because of the language, but that wasn't my real example. But like, let's say, hey, I actually don't do that with my daughter. If you don't mind just respecting that boundary, right?
Yeah.
So there are moments like that. And then it's awkward, right? Like the person feels scolded. I try to say it in a way where they don't feel scolded. I don't want them to feel shamed. I don't want to be coming across like I'm they're a bad guy or whatever. But then there are other moments where it's just not appropriate to go into a process with a lot of people present, and you have to really make that discerning decision. If you're at a 10-person dinner and somebody says something really rude, and you speak up in that moment and say, "Hey, that was really hurtful." Is that gonna change Thanksgiving? And now the whole, 2 hours you're gonna be the whole family's in a fight, right? So you have to really pay attention. However, you can always pull that person aside later and say, "Hey, I felt really sad or hurt, and I would love to chat with you. Are you open to talking about it more in depth with me?" You
Mhm.
have to know your audience, right? You have to know, who are you talking to? Are they able to receive you? Don't go asking that to somebody if you know they can't receive you. That's just your unconscious getting you into trouble. So if that's the case, you process that alone in therapy or with your partner, whoever it is, right? But if you feel this person could receive, then you have to have the skill to bring something forward to them in a way that is non-blaming and non-shaming, and really centers your heart and your feeling place and how the impact felt in your body. It's a lot of dance and a lot of skill to do that.
Yeah. So earlier in the podcast, you talked about practicing, right? Is this where that applies to, like practicing with the mailman or practicing with the
Hey.
low hanging fruit where it's not as maybe triggery and deep?
Yeah, you can't really practice bearing your heart in that way with the mailman, because it's not the same, right? As me going to, like, I actually had one of these conversations this morning, and it was beautiful. It's just like, hey, that moment felt really uncomfortable for me, and I want to talk about it. Like, what was going on for you? So sometimes this level of intimacy does have to be practiced
Mhm.
with somebody that, you could get really real with and be real with. I would say, in terms of low hanging fruit, do it with your partner. If they're committed to you. I'm not saying they're low hanging, and it depends on how committed you are. But if you're married or in a long-term partnership with someone, they're the best person to practice with, because they likely aren't going to leave you because you're like, "Hey babe, the way you talked about my hair reminded me of my childhood, and people used to make fun of my hair, and I just felt really like whatever it was," right? Like, your partner, likely your romantic long-term partner, has space for that in a way that maybe your parents, your partner's parents, your best friends don't. They may not, there may be a little thought, are they going to never talk to me again if I'm real with them, right? So I would say practice with your romantic partner if you all have that type of relationship where you can be real like that.
And if someone doesn't, what would you say to that person?
Practice with your friends, people you trust, like friends that you trust, not like a new friend you just met yesterday and you're like, "Can I get real with you?" Right? But somebody that there's some trust in place. There's enough of a foundation of trust so that you can rupture and repair. Repair is it builds intimacy. So it's a great way to build intimacy. If you feel like there's a little rupture in the space, you just say like, "Hey, do you have space to talk about something?" And take responsibility. They didn't do anything to you. Do some nonviolent communication study if you want. But I felt really sad when you said this. It brought something up in me. It's about you bringing you. Don't use you did this and not it was like this. Nothing was like something. I felt like it was like something. So you have to be very good at communication and skill there, because it's very easy to go into projections, and then you're going to bring up the defenses in that person and you're not going to go anywhere. So I know this from lots of trial and error with my partner. "Babe, when you did this, it made me feel like this." Nope, he did not make me feel any kind of way.
Mhm.
"When you said this, I felt really sad. When you said this, it brought something up that's in me." Right? Full responsibility. That's so important anytime you have a repair conversation.
Yeah, language is powerful. You
Yeah.
know, What do you say that we have the ability to gain through going into these kinds of conversations that can be uncomfortable? And what are we perhaps losing out on by not?
We get so free from having these conversations. We become free of all the doubts in our minds, all of the shoulds, all of the ruminating. We get so free to just walk through life and just deeply exhale. I just get to be me. I can make a mistake and it's okay. Someone else can make a mistake and it's okay. I'm free. I know how to navigate love and intimacy, right? It's so liberating. When we don't, we risk everything. We risk living fake lives, dishonest, two dimensional, disconnected. And then on our deathbed, they say you don't really care so much about how much money you made or if you have a house in Cabo and a house in, Tahoe or whatever, that you really care about relationships, who you loved, how you loved, who loved you back, how that felt, that's what we care about. So invest in that.
So, so beautiful. All right, tell us about your upcoming master class, and then I'm going to leave you with one question before we get to go into the private room and the beehivers get to coach with you.
So I've just been really fired up about helping women choose love that want to be in relationship. Not if you want to be single right now. If you want to be single right now, I love you and I was you for a very long time. So if you want to do that, great. If you want to be in a long-term relationship, I want to help you to choose that. And I want to help you to feel the ways where you're not choosing it and you're saying no to it unconsciously. Okay, because that is an epidemic that I see and it's painful to watch. And I have a lot of love for it because I was in those cycles of not knowing now how to receive, having too high standards, having too low standards, like a whole total everything was like churning and being flipped on its head. And so I want to help you orient to how to choose love in this day and age and wild times and online times from a deep grounded spiritual place. And so I just did one class about this. I've got another one that I'm building and I'm really excited about it because I just know how many people feel confused right now. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I can get you to the orientation in yourself on how to know if you want to choose into love instead of being a victim of there's no love, there's no good man, there's nothing out there. That is a non truth that I'd like to help you liberate from.
Beautiful. Okay, so is this mainly for single people looking to match up, or is this also for people in relationships? It's mainly for single.
Mainly for single people.
Okay, perfect.
Wanting partnership, single women specifically.
I know some that are going to be listening to this that'll be very interested. The links are below. It's
But it's
free.
not about fixing yourself. It's not about changing yourself. None of that. You're amazing as you are, and you don't have to do that in order to welcome love in.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's so important.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so my last question, and then ladies in the room, get your questions ready because we are going to end the recording very shortly and you get to ask all your questions. So if there was one thing, Alexandra, that you wish for every woman listening for them to take away from this conversation, whether it's something we talked about or not, it's like you can wave your magic wand and just have them completely embody and know this one thing. What is that?
That they're absolutely perfect just as they are here and now in this moment. That's it. You are. The world has told you you're broken, you're not attractive enough, you should do this, this, this. You need to have this career in order to feel important or valuable. You need to look like this. All of that is lies created by capitalism, corporate companies, advertising. But underneath all of that, the divine made you as you are in this moment perfectly, perfectly, like her work of art. How dare you speak against the great she and say that who you are is anything but perfect? Does that mean you can't mold it and change it and put on a different outfit and play with it? Absolutely. Do all of that. But at your core, in this moment here and now, you are already perfect.
So beautiful. So beautiful. All right, everybody, drop your comments below. Let us know what resonated with you, what you loved. Grab her book. We're reading it right now in the Book Nook. You can join us if you're hearing this when it comes out or later on. We'll drop the link to her book. There's many books. How to Fuck Like a Goddess, also incredible at like finding the beauty and the passion inside of you that we've been taught to cover up. One of my favorite books I've ever read in my life.
Oh, thank you.
So check her out, follow her. Alexandra, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, what a pleasure.
All right, ladies, I can't wait to hear your feedback from that one. Go ahead and leave a comment below. Let me know what's your biggest takeaway, any questions you have. Go ahead and click that share button and send this to a woman in your life who perhaps also needs this powerful transformational information. And we'll see you next time.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye. See you next time.